The man vanished, and it took nearly a decade to realize he never actually left town. That day, Donnie Erwin was just heading out to buy a pack of cigarettes. A small, ordinary errand, but that would be the last time anyone ever saw him. There were no screeching brakes, no surveillance footage, no witnesses. Donnie and his Hyundai Elantra simply disappeared. His family called the police. Search teams combed the area, but there wasn't a single clue to be found. Even stranger, Donnie wasn't the type to just walk away from his life. A Navy veteran, he lived with quiet discipline and routine. He didn't make waves, he didn't disappear. Yet in the blink of an eye, he was gone. Right from the heart of the town he'd called home for decades. And the most terrifying part? No one knew what they'd missed. Donnie Erwin was born in 1954 and raised in the quiet Midwestern town of Camdenton, Missouri. People used to say he was the kind of man no one really noticed until he was gone. A Navy veteran, Donnie had served in the 1970s. After his discharge, he chose a quiet life. No fanfare, no drama. No wife, no kids, no wild stories. Just a simple routine. Wake up, read the newspaper, watch trivia shows, and occasionally step out for small errands. He lived in a modest home on the edge of town, not far from the main road, but just isolated enough that his absence wouldn't go unnoticed for long. Neighbors described him as the kind of guy who always said hello, super punctual, and never bothered anyone. The only things he seemed to truly love, besides random trivia, were history and old artifacts. Once, he spent hours debating World War II facts with a local librarian, not to show off, but because he genuinely loved learning about the past. Donnie didn't have children, but he did have a younger sister, Yvonne. They talked often. She was his closest tie to family, the one person who would always sense if something was wrong. And on that fateful day in December 2013, Yvonne felt it. She called Donnie multiple times. No answer. As she later recalled, "My brother wasn't impulsive. If he didn't pick up, something was definitely wrong." That's when everything began to unravel. But there was something about Donnie even Yvonne didn't know. Camdenton is a small town in central Missouri, where people know each other well enough to wave, but not so well that they interfere in each other's lives. With fewer than 4,000 residents, the town had just enough to keep life peaceful. A few grocery stores, a gas station, a church, and a couple of local diners. Big things didn't usually happen here. Local news was more about high school football games, summer festivals, or someone opening a new barbershop. So when Donnie Erwin disappeared, the town didn't panic. No sirens, no lockdowns, no emergency search parties. Some neighbors recalled, "I just thought he went out of town for a few days." Another said, "Donnie lived alone. Maybe he went on a trip or visited family." But that silence, that hesitation, was the gap where everything started to fall through. Because Donnie wasn't the kind of man who traveled. He didn't own a new car. No smartphone, no email, no close friends beyond his sister. And most importantly, he left no note. When Yvonne drove all the way back to Camdenton and started knocking on doors, many people were hearing for the first time that Donnie was missing. She posted missing flyers on lampposts, gas stations, church bulletin boards, and waited. No calls, no leads. No one had seen a thing. Local police launched an investigation, but with the limited resources of a small town. No traffic cameras, no GPS data, no professional search teams. They drove around, checked a few ponds, asked a handful of people, then stopped. With no sign of foul play, Donnie was classified as an unexplained disappearance. A 59-year-old man who had simply ceased to exist. And that, the quiet forgetting by an entire community, is what let this tragedy stretch on for nearly a decade. December 29th, 2013. It was cold. Gray skies stretched low over Camdenton. Winters here weren't brutal, but the damp chill made everything feel heavier, quieter. That afternoon, as neighbors later recalled, Donnie Erwin put on a warm coat and stepped outside. He told someone nearby he was going to drive out and grab some cigarettes, then got into his silver Hyundai Elantra and drove off down the narrow, worn street toward the local convenience store. That was the last anyone knew. No security footage, no phone signal, no credit card transactions. No one, Not the store clerk, not a single person on any nearby street saw Donnie walk in anywhere. Yvonne started to worry when her calls to Donnie went unanswered. One missed call? Maybe he was napping. Two? Maybe he stepped out. Three, four, and then a full night of silence. She called the Camden police. A missing person report was filed the next morning. But at first, no one treated it as urgent. He was an adult, legally free to walk away if he wanted. The usual explanation. Maybe he just needed a break from the world. But Yvonne knew that wasn't right. Donnie wasn't that kind of man. He had nowhere to go, and no reason to leave. So she took matters into her own hands. She printed flyers, knocked on doors, posted on Facebook. She started a page called Find Donnie Erwin, hoping someone, anyone, had seen something. An abandoned car, a man matching Donnie's description at a gas station, in the woods, near the river. But all of it was just speculation. Camden returned to business as usual, while Yvonne was left trapped in a spiral of fear, desperation, and one question that no one could answer. How can a man and his car just vanish into nothing? A few days after Donnie disappeared, police launched a small-scale search. They checked the most likely routes from his home to the nearest store. They scanned security cameras at a few shops, a gas station, a school. No sightings, no footage, no matching license plate. Nothing. 1 week passed, then a month. The silver Hyundai Elantra had vanished right along with him, as if the town had swallowed them both whole. Yvonne started drawing her own maps, marking every turn, every patch of woods, every body of water. Places where, in the worst case, a car could disappear, or a body could go unseen. She asked police about GPS data, but Donnie didn't own a smartphone. No GPS, no credit card use, not a single digital trail to follow. In a connected world, Donnie had become, essentially, a ghost. There was one thing Yvonne couldn't stop thinking about: the road Donnie took. Police assumed he'd taken the main road to the store. But what if, out of habit or split-second decision or just to avoid icy patches, he took a different route? There was a back road, rarely used, lined with small ponds, deep ditches, steep slopes. A single wrong move could have sent his car sliding. And if no one saw it happen, the vehicle could easily sink out of sight. Yvonne suggested expanding the search zone, especially near water. But the response was, "We've already checked those areas." She had no reason to doubt them at the time, but the feeling never left her. What if something important was missed? Time passed. Search efforts faded. Community interest waned. The Facebook posts stopped getting shared. Rain blurred the ink on the missing posters. Wind tore them from lampposts. Some were taken down, but Yvonne didn't stop. Even as the weeks turned into years, she kept searching, still holding on to one haunting question. Where had Donnie been all this time? And why hadn't anyone found him? 9 years passed. The Find Donnie Erwin Facebook page was still there, like an old bulletin board in the middle of the desert. People still clicked like, still left comments like praying for answers or still thinking of him. But no one had any real information. Yvonne lived in that painful limbo, caught between sorrow and duty, between hope and the truth she had slowly come to accept, that Donnie might never be found. The police never officially closed the case, but they weren't actively pursuing it either. The reason? No new evidence. They had done everything they could, at least within the limits of a small-town department. But someone else quietly refused to give up. James Hinkle, a man in his 40s living in Missouri, wasn't a detective, had no connection to Donnie or to Camden. He was a YouTuber. His channel, Echo Divers, specialized in finding missing vehicles underwater, using sonar technology and drones. James had helped crack a few cold cases before, and when he heard about Donnie, one thing stood out: a gap in the search map. "It's not that police didn't search," James said in a later video. "They just skipped over places that seemed unimportant." Starting in 2022, James pulled up Google Maps and began marking every lake, pond, and low-lying valley around Camden. There were more than 100 possible sites, and he started visiting them, one by one, alone, armed with nothing more than a kayak outfitted with sonar, a drone, and a GoPro. No budget, no team, no media attention, Just one question in his mind. If Donnie never left town, where is he? James Hinkle wasn't a cop. He wasn't a journalist. He wasn't even a professional diver. But in a world where justice often moves slowly, sometimes it takes someone like him, with a drone, a sonar device, and pure determination, to do what the system can't. For over a year, James methodically searched the waters around Camdenton. Some days, he spent 5 hours paddling, scanning sonar, and finding nothing. Other days, his drone would run out of battery in the freezing cold. But he didn't stop. Eventually, one area started to nag at him. A small pond, tucked behind a row of trees, just 150 feet off the main road. Not far, but just hidden enough to be overlooked. Looking again at satellite images, James realized that pond sat directly along the alternate route Donnie might have taken if he were avoiding icy patches on the main road. It was a quiet stretch, seldom used. If an accident happened there, no one would have seen. James remembered something Yvonne once said. She'd asked police to check that area. The response? There's nothing there worth looking into. But James decided to go back. This time he brought better sonar and something more powerful than any piece of tech. The gut instinct of someone who refused to let this go. December 16th, 2023. His sonar picked up an unusual shape at the bottom of the pond. Something that looked like a car. James didn't rush. He captured the data, compared the shape to the make and model of a 2002 Hyundai Elantra. The match was too close to ignore. The next day, he sent his findings to the Camdenton Police Department. And this time, they responded fast. A recovery team was dispatched. And that morning, as hooks churned through the muddy water and the surface rippled with tension, what emerged from the depths felt like time itself had stopped. December 17th, 2023. Camdenton was cold and gray, just like the day Donnie disappeared. But this time the scene looked different. Police, divers, forensics teams, and a large crane truck parked right at the pond's edge. A few townspeople gathered quietly at a distance. No one said a word. Their eyes locked on the slow, deliberate movement of the crane's metal hook, descending into the glass-still water. Within minutes, the crane began to lift something. First, a glint of metal through the mud, then broken glass, a rusted car frame, and finally, a weathered license plate. Hyundai Elantra. The same plate number listed in the 2013 missing persons report. One veteran officer broke down in tears. The vehicle was pulled ashore, covered with a tarp, and transported for forensic analysis. Inside, the driver's seat was still intact. And right beneath it, they found the one piece of evidence that confirmed everything. A titanium hip joint, serial number still visible. It matched Donnie Erwin's medical records exactly. There was nothing more to say. The police didn't immediately release the name. They were following procedure, waiting on DNA. But for Donnie's family, for Yvonne, for everyone who had waited nearly a decade, there was no doubt anymore. I knew it was him, Yvonne said. I knew the second they mentioned the titanium implant. The news spread fast. Local outlets ran the story. Cold case YouTubers shared James Hinkle's video. The internet filled with comments. Finally, some answers. Grateful for those who never gave up. But for Yvonne, the emotions were harder to name. She didn't know whether to feel relieved, broken, angry, or at peace. It felt like a punch to the chest. Hard, sudden. It knocked me down. But it was the first time I could breathe in 9 years. When that Hyundai Elantra emerged from the pond, the whole town held its breath. Not because of shock, but because of something else. Shame. The pond where the car had been found? Just a few dozen yards from the main road. Not remote. Not dangerous. Not inaccessible. It had been there for 10 years. Right under their noses. One officer, speaking anonymously, later admitted, "We passed by that area, but we didn't check it thoroughly. The water was murky. And we didn't have sonar." No sonar? Or no determination? That question hung in the air like fog. James Hinkle, a man with no badge, no funding, no authority, had found what an entire law enforcement system couldn't in 9 years. No one officially apologized to Yvonne. No one accepted responsibility. What she got was a short meeting with the police chief, a few paperwork notices, and a silent hug from a coroner's assistant. No one got charged. No one was reprimanded. But I lost a decade of my life searching for my brother. Donnie's story became a chilling reminder that even in America, a country with advanced forensic tech and thousands of trained investigators, some people still go missing and stay forgotten, simply because they didn't make enough noise. Donnie had no criminal record, no enemies, no drama. He lived quietly, which once had been a testament to his characters. But in the end, it became the very reason he wasn't found. And if not for a stranger, someone who had never met Donnie, but believed he deserved to be remembered, that car might still be underwater. And this story might never have been told. The car was found. The remains were identified. Donnie had come home. And yet, strangely, for many, the story now felt more confusing than ever. Because the mystery wasn't that Donnie vanished. It was that he never left town. The pond where he was found, just minutes from his house, right along a perfectly logical route he might have taken, to avoid fog or icy roads. It was something Yvonne had pointed out in the very first year, but it had been dismissed. And then came the detail that left everyone silent. When the forensics team opened the car door, they found Donnie's shoes, still neatly positioned beneath the driver's seat, untouched, unmoved. There were no signs of a violent crash, no deployed airbags, no visible blood. Everything was too calm, too neat for an accident, but not enough to prove a crime. The official theory was simple. Donnie lost control of the car and slid into the pond under the cover of night. A lonely accident, unseen by anyone. But if that were true, why wasn't there a single sign of impact? No loud noise? No skid marks near the water's edge? No splash? No one heard a thing? One local put it plainly. That pond's shallow in winter. If a car went in, it should have left some kind of mark. Another added, and if he was trapped, why didn't he try to break a window? The questions began to pile up. No one said it out loud, but everyone felt it deep down. Maybe we missed something. Or maybe we made the wrong assumptions from the start. There was no evidence of foul play, but there was also no way to say, beyond doubt, that this was just an accident. That lingering suspicion, vague, unspoken, but persistent, drifted through Camdenton, like a cold wind. What really happened to Donnie Erwin? Yvonne made no accusations. She didn't need conspiracies. All she wanted was the truth, and a little respect. I'm not asking for someone to be arrested, she said. I just want to know what took my brother and why it took 9 years to find him. For many, the case is closed. But for those who truly cared, Donnie's return isn't an ending. It's the beginning of a deeper kind of ache. The kind of ache that happens when justice doesn't come from the courtroom, but from questions that may never be answered. 9 years, a life, a car, a man who once lived and once vanished without a sound. The story of Donnie Erwin has no clear villain, no confession, no arrest. And maybe that's what makes it harder to accept than any bloody ending, the silence of being forgotten. Donnie didn't die from a bullet. He didn't disappear into a dense forest. He simply vanished. In a town where people believed, that kind of thing doesn't happen here. Maybe he died that winter night. But he truly disappeared. When people stopped looking. When the system gave up for lack of leads. When the community moved on to the next headline. When Facebook stopped sharing missing Donnie Erwin. And maybe, just maybe, he was one of the countless victims of invisibility. Not loud, not wealthy, not famous. The kind of person who, when they're no longer around, no one's entirely sure they were ever there at all. Hundreds of people go missing every year, not because someone took them, but because no one looked long enough. Donnie has been found, but Yvonne's brother is gone. The polite neighbor, the man who once explained American history in a quiet library, lay underwater for nearly a decade, just minutes from home. This story doesn't need to end with sirens or the glow of a courtroom spotlight. It ends with something simpler. We remember. We remember that someone like Donnie deserved to live, deserved to be searched for, deserved to be named, even if only in a final sentence. What do you think really happened that night? If you've ever felt someone in your community has been forgotten, leave a comment. I won't forget Donnie. Because sometimes justice doesn't begin with the truth. It begins with memory,